Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. We're excited to have over 215 people registered for today's webinar, which is eligible for one CE credit from the ACI. All right, guys, let's get started as we always do by giving one of our lucky attendees a chance to win a Webinar Wednesday lunch bag for answering this week's trivia question. Which famous circus showman, politician, and businessman was born in Connecticut? Answer now using the question feature on your webinar dashboard. And while you're guessing, I do want to invite everyone to save the date for our Fall MD Expo. It's going to be taking place at the Hilton Baltimore Inner Harbor from October 17 through 19. We look forward to you joining us for 3 days of learning, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology, products, and services. More details can be found at mdexposhow.com, and registration for this conference will be opening next month in June. All right, let's see who this week's winner is. It looks like congratulations to Shannon Dingus. Shannon, you knew the correct answer was P. Barnum. Congratulations. I do want to take a moment before we introduce our presenter today just to remind the attendees that we have now automated the post-webinar survey and certificate process. We hope that you find this more convenient. The survey link will be included in a follow-up email, which you'll receive in about an hour's time after today's presentation wraps up. Once you have completed the survey, you'll be able to download the certificate immediately from your computer. More on this after today's presentation, but right now, Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsors, Sonator and Edie Bailey. Visit sonator.com and ediebailey.com for more information on these companies. Our moderator today for our panel discussion is going to be Paul Schultz. He's the Manager of Healthcare Consulting for Edie Bailey. Paul, you may begin the presentation whenever you are ready.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our discussion on advanced ambulatory workflows. I want to thank TechNation and Sonator for this opportunity to share our experience with this avenue of work. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today, and grateful for your time. Got a great team with us today, team from Altru, and Sam Wilson joining us. My name is Paul. I'll be moderating the session. And to start out, how about if we do a little introductions?
Hi, my name is Anders McCarrum. I'm an internal medicine provider. I'm also department chair for Crookston and for the internal medicine team in Grand Forks. I've been working with Altru for approximately 7 years, and I've been working with this system for approximately 1 year.
My name is Rhonda Anger. I'm the practice manager of the Advanced Orthopedics Department. I have been with Altru for 7 years and with the RTLS implementation in our department for the last 3 years.
My name is Jessica Irian. I'm a system analyst in our IT department, and I work for Altru for 17 years and have been working with RTLS for about 1.5 years.
And I am Sam Olson. I've been at Eide Bailly for nearly 4 years, working in our analytics and business intelligence area, and developing solutions like this for Altru for nearly 3 years.
And I am Paul Schultz. I'm with Eide Bailly. I'm a healthcare consulting manager. We started working with RTLS about, 3.5 years ago, Rhonda? Something like that?
Yeah.
And previous to that, had RTLS experience with different organizations. Okay, we're going to talk about 3 things today and to get this going. And we want to share with you some of the technologies that Altru has done to improve patient flow, and more importantly, how to better use your resources and some of the data that has helped that out. We're going to try and put all this together for you so you can understand how these pieces work together. And looking forward to hearing all of you discuss how growing and leading teams to challenge the current state has brought some innovative things forward for patient care and for the clinics that you work in. There's Jill Wilson, who's not part of this team right now. She shared this quote, which I think is kind of important. And she was part of the Advanced Orthopedics RTLS deployment starting about 3.5 years ago. And she talks about investing in different tools to provide this new environment, which is key to the transformational stage and helps with different phases of care and helps with innovation. And Rhonda, you worked with Jill for quite a while. What you want to share on this a little bit?
Yeah, sure. When we started RTLS with Advanced Orthopedics, we had there was a perception out there in our health system that it took a very long time to get an appointment in our department. And once you were there, you were going to spend a lot of time in that department, at least an hour for your appointment. And with the investment of RTLS, it gave us the insight to see how we were performing, and it launched us into a new way of thinking about how we care for our patients and allowed us to do a lot of process improvement and increase the throughput of our patients in our department.
Dr. McCarron, I remember visiting the Crookston Clinic before we started the construction, and we were looking at that time the clinic setting was put together in pods, and there was a nurse station. All the providers had their offices, and we were looking at a new form of folks working together with this onstage, offstage environment. And do you want to share a little bit about what that's like now at Crookston?
Sure. The onstage offstage is definitely a new concept for us, especially in primary care. We were a little bit skeptical when we were talking about it initially. But ultimately, as it stands right now, having that offstage where all of the staff is and having the onstage where mainly patients are has created a different type of environment in which we are a little bit more efficient. We function better as a team, and we really have noticed a lot less concern in regards to patient privacy, since all of the patient information is within the staff area alone, as opposed to where patients are located. So this was definitely novel, and it's working out very well along with the RTLS system right now in primary care.
Great. Rhonda, you have it too in Advanced Orthopedics.
Yeah, we do. And when I think about when we were building this space for orthopedics, we had some concerns about not having private offices and working out of a flow station. And so we built some private space in our department for the providers to have a touchdown area. And 3 years later, what we find is that space is hardly used. And most of this providers and nurse communication, it's all happening out at the flow station. It allows us to have continuous communication throughout the day, and everybody is getting their work completed at the end of the day. So we're not doing it late at night or coming in the morning, having a pile of work that we need to catch up on. And it just allows us to get information back to the patient in a more timely manner.
Awesome. When you both mentioned that moving forward, it was a little bit difficult for some of your team members. But how long did it take for folks to get used to the new environment?
I would say for the orthopedic department, it would probably took about a month to kind of get used to the flow of how things were going to run with RTLS and working out any kinks and things that we had in there. But shortly after that month passed, you'd start to see less use of that provider space. People were just spending their time out in the flow stations, and to this day, that is exactly how it is. They are always out in the flow station.
Good. About that same with you, Dr. McCarron, a little bit longer?
Almost. I think we had a group of providers that really wanted to try it out fairly quick, and they engaged real quick. There was a group of providers that kind of wanted to see what the others were doing and eventually kind of followed. And I still have 2 providers that prefer their private space, and they are still kind of working a little bit out of their private office location, just because it allows them to concentrate better the way that they've been working for a long time. It's just the change did not quite work for them. So I would say most of the team is definitely on board with the new setup, and 2 providers are basically still working the same way that they did before the office design change.
Sure. Okay, now we're getting into the technology piece as it matches up with the architecture piece. And at Altru, the RTLS technology is being used in spaces where they do not have the on-stage, off-stage design. So we don't want to put the impression out there that you have to have one in order to have the other. But when we want to talk about the advanced, workflow technologies that are out there, we want to put the two together. So on the technology side, we have the RTLS hardware provided by Sonator, and we'll get into that a little bit later when you pick up the piece of the presentation. Mm-hmm. We have the software by Zulafly, which collects the data and helps us understand the workflows and puts the views up on the screen and our notifications to team members. And then we have the business intelligence tool that brings all this data together and creates visualizations, which you're going to hit with on a little bit later on, Sam.
You bet. And
the work that we've done there to help the team. One of the things that people ask is that, why do you do this? Why move forward? And, what's Altru looking for? What are, health systems looking for? What was the vision out there? And Mr. Mullen at the time was CEO when working with Jill Advanced Orthopedics, and he had seen something like this happen in another health system and wanted to bring that vision back. Rhonda, when folks ask, what are you getting out of this the most, or why did you do this? How do you respond to that?
One of the things that I like to talk about is being able to see what's happening in the clinic at the time it's happening, and we're able to make real-time decisions and make changes. So, for example, when our x-ray department is maybe running behind, or we're seeing that there's a longer wait time for a patient to get back into the x-ray department, there's a notification that comes to me, and I go and I check into with that department, see what's happening, and if there's anything we can do to help speed up their flow or their processes. So it's nice to be able to make those decisions real time and make changes as the work fluctuates throughout the day.
Awesome. Dr. McCarrum, how would you view something like that? What are you looking forward to accomplish at the Crookston Clinic with this?
So there's a couple of different reasons that this has become helpful to us. On the clinical side, it really helps us with communication between the teams. In the Crookston Clinic, we have lab and imaging, plus we have infusion services and physical therapy and hemodialysis. We have a lot of pieces moving around, and sometimes whenever the patient needs something, we find ourselves doing a lot of waiting to get a hold of somebody for things to happen. And using the RTLS communication part has really helped to create that connection and build a stronger connection in terms of what needs to happen when, so that people don't have to wait, both the patients and providers, and things can continue to move forward. The other part is basically really helping us understand each process. When we look at the clinic as a whole, and we look at the future of medicine, we're really seeing that we're expecting more patients, and we're really not expecting a lot more providers to be available. So creating efficiencies in processes and efficiencies for the providers themselves, so that they can provide the same or better quality care for a patient, but doing it in less time without having to get stuck after hours finishing charting. That seems like a really good goal to have.
Fantastic. All right. We're moving into how this all works, Jess. And your role on the IT side of Altru has been very helpful and very, very pivotal in helping to, bring the different pieces together. Can you walk us through the hardware and the software pieces of this?
Sure. So the first part is really in the configuration of the network and how all of the servers are communicating with one another. And we use Cisco as sort of the intermediary between Sonator and Zulafly. And as all of the location updates are coming through from Sonator, from the gateways to the badges to the gateways, all of that gets collected. The data comes together and gets pushed over to Zulafly, which allows for the team to see what's happening, essentially. So as we configure Zulify software to know what to do with the communication that's coming from Sonitor. And all of that sort of comes together. We have messages coming over from Epic across an interface so that the badges can be scanned in and tied to the patient temporarily. And then all of that information gets pushed over into Zulify, and then the magic happens.
The magic happens.
That's
All right.
about it.
Okay. There's a lot of different visit types that are associated with each one of the clinics. How is that organized when the patient presents themselves for a visit?
It's based on the department that the patient is presenting to. So within Epic, we have hundreds of departments across the enterprise. And so we have it configured for anything that comes through from any of the 6 departments that we have right now using our TLS. Those messages are sent, and we have filters and rules built to say if the message is coming from Advanced Ortho or Crookston or any of the others, then send those over. And if it's not coming, then don't send it over.
Okay. And that seems to be working fairly well.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't something that ran and worked right away. We do have, issues that come up once in a while, to get it running and to get it started. And for everyone listening out there, I think it's important to understand that how IT works with the care team, that works with, what the patients are experiencing, that bridge, that marriage is really important. And especially as we think about the innovation side, I mean, you get questions like, "Hey, Jess, can we do?"
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there some things that come to mind when folks have said that, like, "Hey, can we do something?" And it's like, "Well, I don't really know."
Yes, actually, there have been a number of instances where care teams have contacted me and said, we would like to have a notification possible if a patient is coding, say, for instance, and we press the button, we're in the room together with the patient, and we need more help, we're going to press our button again, signifying another notification to sound to the care team out in the pod area, or the offstage area, I should say. And then another nurse or more help can be sent in basically to help out with whatever's happening in that room. Mm-hmm. And we know right now it's immediate where they are, that they need more help.
Yep. So the software side, Sonitor, the data moves fairly fast. It needs to. The care team, it's interesting when we deploy this, if it doesn't happen within, I would say within 5 or 7 seconds, the care team is kind of wondering, what's going on, or I wish this was moving a little bit faster. And right now, with all the work that you've done with the Cisco systems and the different certifications and making all the notifications run, we are getting at that speed where we push a button and we seem to see that response. And that's really cool to see. So on the other half of this is the Zulify software, which you work a lot with as well.
Yes, I do. So Zulify is where we write the rules that dictate what happens and what the care team sees. And when a button is pressed, the color can change to signify the staff to go into the room. It's your turn, kind of.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got a couple of different views here that we're showing folks. One is a map view, and then one is the workflow view. The map view, do you use that, Dr. McCarron, very often, or don't you in your practice?
Only my boss when she's looking for me.
Okay. And it works?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. What?
I think that is the main way that people are using the maps. It's if, we're looking for somebody and they can find them right now.
Yeah. There is a kind of a neat application in the Crookston Clinic where it's Assist Me, where the staff can push the button, and if they need assistance, the members in the office, behind the reception desk can see, and they look at the map view, and they know where the person is and, when they need help. And that happens maybe more often than we want it to, but it does happen out at Crookston. Okay. So, Jess, you were talking about the workflow piece, the next screen that we have here. Could you walk through that real quick or?
Sure. So the way that we set up those rules that I was talking about within Zulafly is we basically talk to the care team and ask them exactly what happens in a day. What are all the different scenarios that you can think of that we might need to work through? And so then we just document all of those things. First, the patient gets checked in, they are brought to the room. The nurse spends some time with them, taking their vitals, talking about medications, etc. Then what happens next? Etc. And so we really just walk through, we talk about every single possible thing that could happen. And then we step away from it. We come back again. We show them in a spreadsheet view, sort of like this. And then we validate and we make sure that we've got it right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rules are written. And then, of course, we have to test everything, make sure that it all works appropriately with the button presses and all the different pieces of the puzzle. And when we are confident that we have it right, then it gets pushed out there.
The magic happens again. Right?
Absolutely.
All right. So on the next screen, we've got, so this is when everything is up and running. We have monitors set up in the clinics. In some clinics, the monitors are up on the wall like this. In other clinics, like in Crookston, the monitors are really close to you in the practice. How often do you look at the RTLS monitor, do you think, Dr. McCarron, as you're going through your day?
I would say every 5 minutes if I'm in front of the computer, mainly because it tells me where my patients are at, if my next person has already checked in, if I'm needed in a room. And the monitor is basically next to my actual medical records monitor, so it's an easy glance to know where I'm needed.
Rhonda, do you look at the monitors quite often, or like when you're in your role and checking out the clinic?
Yep, I am up in the department looking at that monitor constantly, just wondering where people are and where I need to go to either round with patients, see how their experience was, or if I need to find somebody. I'm looking at that monitor a lot. For our providers, we are doing a couple different things. So our monitors are based on the side, so the nurses are able to see them in the flow station. So we've added dual screens to our provider stations so they can have that up on their workstation when they're out there. And then we are trialing a third monitor with another provider, so that provider can have the medical record up on one, Zulafly up on the other, and then PACS up on the other, so we can look at imaging and kind of correlate everything all together. So that seems to be going really well. And I would guess that we will probably spread that to other providers in the department as well.
So it's like a little command center for the provider to have everything that they need right in front of them.
Yes, absolutely.
And all this relates to, we don't want to waste time. We don't want to be looking for things if we know we can have it in front of us. We want to know where people are. We want to know what's happening next in the phase of care, getting that information in front of folks. The visibility of RTLS is real important. And I think for anybody considering RTLS out there, this piece of what the team is talking about, how to get it to flow, the visibility, when I look at it, how accessible it is, really is key. So on the visibility side, we've got a couple of screens here. These are different views that come through in the software. This is the first one is the check-in, check-out view. And Jess, you want to share a little bit more?
Yes. So I think a lot of the patient access staff are utilizing this on a regular basis, although it really is configurable to any user that wants to have this on their screen. You can split your screen horizontally or vertically. You can have multiple views out there. Just whatever you need for your role is what's key. But to point out on this screen, the location column, second from the left, is, I think, the main one that they are looking at, because it is showing a detailed last location of wherever that patient was. And as you can see in the far left column, the patient information is de-identified. So depending on where the screen is, if it's in a public place or anywhere that might be viewed by someone who, would be a sensitive area, we don't want to show all that detail. So we can de-identify the names in that view as well.
Perfect. Then there's a workflow view. And this is probably the one that you look at mostly, Rhonda and Dr. McCarron. And I don't know if you guys want to share in this a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the view that all of our team has up on their computers, and also our front desk will have this view up as well. And the reason why our front desk uses this view is when a button is pressed and they're needed back in a room to make another appointment or a recheck appointment, this screen will change to that orange color and it'll show them exactly where they need to go, as well as getting the sound notification that they're needed in a department. So yes, they use that check-in view, but primarily we're using this view. We're very into the colors, and we like to follow the colors up in orthopedics.
Yeah. Are the colors kind of more important than the words on the screen when it comes down to it?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And no, you self-room in advanced orthopedics.
Correct.
Okay. And did you do self-rooming before RTLS? Was the RTLS kind of a precursor to that?
We did not self-room in RTLS, or prior to RTLS. We had a traditional lobby where the patients would check in. They would sit in the lobby and wait for the nurse or athletic trainer to call them back to their room. When we implemented RTLS, we started with self-rooming right away. And it has been a time saver for our team to, we've built the workflow where the patient goes to where they're needed, and then we bring everything to them. And so it's really saved some time for us. And it was difficult right away. We did spend a lot of time kind of training our patients and walking them back to the room and getting them familiar with the new process. And now that we've been doing it, they just get their tag and they just go.
Yep. And then at the Crookston Clinic, no self-rooming there. We felt that it was kind of a leap for the team, but the schedulers are coming into the room, and other notifications happen with the button presses. Could you share on that a little bit, Dr.
Absolutely. With the self-rooming, we really debated it because it seems, again, like there's a good amount of time wasted by the team having to go out and then kind of yell out the patient name, and there's that privacy issue, and then walk the patient back. And is there really any value into walking with the patient? But because we do have some internal medicine there, and we do have a lot of people that have difficulty with walking and potentially need help, we decided that we were either going all in or not, and it wasn't the right time. So I hope that we can revisit that in the near future, but at least for now, we felt for the benefit of the patient, we're not quite ready for it. In terms of everything going to the room, that has been a really, I think it's, when you think about patient-centered care, that's how it should be. Where the patient is, the team goes. The whole idea of making the patient go down 3 blocks and make a left, it just doesn't really work in the future state that we're looking for. So in-room scheduling has been a gigantic success, not just because we are going to where the patient is, but because there's a great deal of privacy. When you are talking to a patient and you're trying to schedule a test, you don't want to do that out in a public area. It just does not make sense. So having everybody come to the patient room has created significant increase in patient satisfaction with services. It also helps with patient privacy. And definitely the whole team feels that it works a lot better because now there's a standard checkout process that works for everybody. So our return visits are much higher.
Fantastic. Okay, the next screen we have, really what we want to show here is that the views are customizable. This is a combination of the workflow screen along with the check-in, check-out screen. And the views can be split up left, right on the monitor, upper, lower. Some places, like to use this. I think there are a few nurses in the Crookston Clinic that like to watch this because they like to see if their patients have gone to lab or gone to radiology or, how long and when they're coming back. Go ahead, Dr.
The customizable part of this is probably my favorite because, in all honesty, having all of the rooms and all of the screens is just really overwhelming. But putting in the 3 most common rooms that I use for the day, and then making the bottom of the screen show only the patients that have logged in under Dr. McCarrum for the day, as opposed to everybody logging in to the Crookston Clinic, really focuses the utility of the tool to my needs and my nurses' needs. The columns are also super customizable, so we chose what we wanted to look at. We want to know the wait time, so that's our second column, and we pay close attention to how long the patient has been waiting. So, whenever that hits a 5-minute or potentially a 10-minute, we know that we need to go in and check up on that person, as opposed to just forget that they're there. So, you, as a provider, to be able to choose what is important for me and my practice based on my patient population is probably the most important part of all this.
Great. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things in the setup. We've got on-stage, off-stage work areas. We have different architecture happening. We have technology. We're trying to bring information to the team as best as we can. This creates a lot of information flowing in the system. And one of the things that we're learning here at AllTrue is that there are new measures that probably aren't out in the industry that are important here. It's the list that's in front of you there. Cycle time, real important. We'll get into these measures, a little bit more depth in advanced orthopedics. Whereas cycle time isn't as important in the primary care area, the patient value added time is what they're looking for in that. Patient wait time, I think across the organization is something that, as we all see, as something that should be tackled. Provider time with the patient. I don't know if Dr. McCarrum, if that's something that is floating to the surface more as being important, or if it's still being understood.
One of the misperceptions that we had with a lot of our providers when we decided that we wanted to try this out was that we were going to rush people through their visits. And what we have noticed is that potentially our cycle times have been decreasing and our patient value added time has been increasing. And throughout all of this work, our provider time with the patient has not changed. And I think that's the biggest use of that information.
So it's a validation that we're not, I think we're understanding that as we reduce the patient wait time, reducing cycle time, increasing the value added time, provider time stays the same or maybe increases a little bit. So it's that waste time that we're finding, that wait time that we're finding really to be a waste. Seeing the provider within 15 minutes of the appointment time is an important question on the CGCAP scores. This system gives us a real concrete answer to that. Did we see the provider within 15 minutes? It's just yes or no. And then on-time visits for measuring in some of the clinics. So all this data pieces brings up you, Sam, and the work that you're doing. And could you let's bring up the BI tool so we can look at some of these visualizations.
You bet.
So Sam, this is the BI tool, and we're on, what are we on? Iteration about 4 or 5?
Probably 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So great comments back from the team.
Yeah, it's crucial too. That first iteration goes out to the team and they begin to kind of familiarize themselves with it. And then the comments start coming in from the Rhondas and Jesses and Dr. McCarrums and expressing how they'd like to view it. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah. And even though we're on iteration 4, we do have a comment. We got to make some changes for Dr. McCarrum on one of the screens.
Oh yeah, the number 3 was real cool, and then I missed number 3, so
Okay.
we got to look at 4.5.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sam, why don't you walk us through on how it's put together?
Sure. So, at this point, we've discussed all the data that's now available to us. This is capturing all of that data and working to present it in a way that's easily consumed by the AllTrue team, and giving them the data they need quickly and again very understandably. So the way it's presented here, we've highlighted those 5 or 6 key metrics that you just outlined, Paul, on the left side of the screen, as kind of the primary KPIs. And then in the kind of the center portion of the screen are a few different comparisons across the locations. So showing patient counts, provider time with patient, wait time by location. So leaders of the organization can sort of assess locations that are performing optimally or those that maybe need some attention. And then on the top of the screen, you can easily drill down to the clinic or the provider that you're maybe wanting to focus on, as well as the time frame that you're wanting to analyze.
Yep. Then we have a number of different reports within this BI set. The next one is provider comparison, and this is the one where we want to bring back to version 3 a little bit, because Dr. McCarron really misses the pie charts and
I miss my pie chart
and the colors. Okay. No, but Dr. McCarron, do you use this when you talk to colleagues?
We are starting to.
Okay.
We've only been using this for about a year, and my partner and I, my dyad and I, get to discuss some of these results over time. And every time we sit and discuss, we find a new way of using them. We find potentially a way to make it more accurate or more relevant to providers. So as we are learning to tweak the data to the most important to the providers, then we are starting to bring it up for discussion to look at process improvement.
Good. What's the next screen there, Sam?
Next, we have the workflow report.
Okay. So in the mix of things, we want to talk about how do we do process improvement. And one of the neat functions of this report is that if we find a patient visit to be out of ordinary, it's a high cycle time, we can click on that patient visit. So just randomly pick one there. And then on the left side of the screen, you can see the different pieces of that patient visit. So we're understanding time with the provider, time in lobby or time waiting, and then the pie chart changes accordingly. But this was designed to help you, Rhonda, and your team. And so when things come up, do you use this often, or?
This is the screen that I will go to when, something is brought up to me, like, so-and-so had a really long wait time. Can you see what happened in that? So I like to go to this, pull that exact patient data, and then look through it and then follow up with the team and figure out, what happened, what can we do better, so this doesn't happen again in our department. So I like this one. I use this one. But there's another one that our team likes even better.
Awesome. All right. Well, the audience is waiting on pins and needles here. What that is. So, all right. I think the nice part about this whole system is that in the realm of process improvement, I think teams in the past have looked at, or teams that maybe don't have this system available to them, they get together and they talk about issues that have happened a month ago or 2 months ago. And it's difficult to really kind of bring that into the present day. And whereas here you can do real-time coaching. Mm-hmm. So it's like if something happens in the morning, in the afternoon, you can have that conversation with the team. Have you found that to be impactful with your team? Like, okay, here's what happened today, or here's what happened this morning. Is it easier to find sort of a root cause as to what happened and work on that root cause?
I would say that it happens a lot sooner than if it happens in the morning and I'm watching and notified that conversation is happening right away. Mm-hmm. To find out what's happening and what improvements we can do to help the patients that are coming in later that day and futuristically to improve and make sure that doesn't occur again. So it's more of a real-time conversation versus several hours down the road or the next day.
Yeah. From my standpoint, Rhonda, it seems like the continuous improvement effort has become less complicated. Right. We don't have to go through a bunch of things, to find the root cause. It's like, okay, this happened. What happened? What's the root cause? Mm-hmm. Can we fix this right now? And get on with it.
Yeah. And that's just the the way our team has transitioned as far as how we were before we had RTLS to how we have now having RTLS, the conversation has changed over time to being real time and let's fix it now versus, let's get a meeting together to get another meeting together and figure out what happened. It's happening right now, real time. So it's very useful.
Okay, we got to get to that screen that you really like. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
If that's the one that's coming up.
So here's a trending report. And we're getting to the, okay. This is all you, Rhonda.
This is all me. This is the screen that our team uses on a weekly basis. We are printing this and we are putting it on our huddle board because this is where our conversations are circling around our daily huddles on what our cycle time was, what our patient value added time was. And this is a screen that is also printed off and given to all of the providers as well, so they know how they're doing on a monthly basis, weekly, however we want to pare it down on the left-hand column, and then we have the year-to-date on the right-hand side. We've set goals in our department off of this screen for patient value added time for the year of 2019, and so just being able to go to this, have a quick glance, get it out to the team, it's very helpful so they can see on a weekly basis how we're doing. Okay.
Has your team... when it comes to the measures, was there a period of time, Rhonda, where the team would look at the measures and, it's like, I don't know if I trust the measures, maybe, is the statement?
Like trusting the data?
Trusting the data, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
When we had started with RTLS and we were getting the data through, it seemed like, yep, okay, this makes sense. And then, things started to seemed like they weren't measuring accurately, or wait times weren't appropriate to how we thought they were in the clinic. We've done some tweaking and we're able to really get those things that didn't make sense out of the data. So we have the correct data, and now, yes, we're right on track again. But there was definitely some questions of the data.
Sure.
I think that's natural though, no matter what kind of data you're using, whether it's this type of data or other data, this naturally someone will always be there to question it. So
yep.
It's got to be validated.
And Dr. McCarron, you said you work with your dyad a lot. You guys have a huddle, right?
We do.
Okay.
We are still learning how to incorporate this. Up until recently, we were finding that our data was somewhat skewed by either the provider that forgot his badge in the bathroom, or the patient who left the badge behind the computer and, was waiting for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. And when you have something like that, it really does not allow you to, again, trust the data. So we've learned the algorithms behind it and how to make those changes. How to exclude a certain patient population in which the data is inaccurate. So now that we have that down, the providers are a little bit more trusting. Mm-hmm. And now I think we are currently at the point in which we are going to actually start looking at the numbers and compare to each other, to last month, and start evaluating the whys behind the changes.
When we talked about the different iterations of the BI tool, it's this type of learning that went on. We're trying to match real life with real technology. The technology is not flexible as we are in life. So when we have this variation in life, we work really hard to not reduce, but understand that variation. And with the technology, we've made these improvements to make it applicable, to your day. And I think that's been a real learning experience, for all of us. And when we say that the software just doesn't come off the shelf, or the hardware just doesn't, go up and it's a go, the next week. This learning curve has been real important. But we're getting some really, really neat information, and so let's go into that now. And here we have some trends that we're going to look at for the next 10 minutes here. And this is cycle time trend for Altru for the clinics that have RTLS. This isn't for all clinics across Altru. This is the clinics that have, and we have, a peak of, just over 42 minutes, and we're sitting there now at about 36. And I know the organization has done a lot, with your scheduling process. There's been a lot as to, what we can do for access. And some of the things that I think we can help the audience understand is that when we have thousands of patients coming through in the clinic within a month, and our cycle time is reduced, that's a lot of care minutes that can go back into the environment. And these are minutes that are valuable for more patients, for other work, to make sure that we have a balance of life for people. Getting things done on the weekends, missing that time with family and friends is expensive. And I know in advanced orthopedics, your guys' cycle time has gone down, Rhonda. And tell us about, what did you use those minutes for? Was it for work? Was it for patients? What did you end up doing with it?
So when we started RTLS and first got our data, I have to put this plug in here.
Yeah.
So we were at about an hour and 6 minutes for our patient cycle time. And as we worked through process improvement, we were able to reduce that cycle time down to, as of today, 45 minutes cycle time. And so that extra time, what we have really coached our providers on doing is that extra time that they're having throughout that day is, it only takes 2 to 4 minutes to document. So, when you have that extra time in between patients, make sure that you're going out there getting that documentation done, so that you're not having to work, like you said, work the weekends, take that time away from your family. So those extra minutes that they're gaining, they're using to get their work done. It's also allowed us to increase the amount of patients that we're putting through our clinic. We've gained some time from that, so we're able to add additional appointment slots into the clinic, which has been very nice. So, for patients not having to wait so long to get in for their appointment. So we're roughly at about a 8-day appointment time to get into our department. If you want to see a surgeon, if you want to see an advanced practice provider, you can get in same day access by through doing some of those improvements.
Yep. Any comments, Dr. McCarron?
My team and I really feel that cycle time is not necessarily the right data for our group. When you look at primary care, there's going to be people that need to come in and out because of an ear thing in 5 minutes. And there's also very complex people that have either heart or lung or diabetes or depression that require your attention for a good 50 minutes. So we don't have a good reason to measure cycle time. More than anything, we focused on patient value added.
And I think that's a really cool concept. I mean, here we found something that advanced orthopedics and some of the other specialty clinics like urology enjoy, okay, and like to look at. But there's a lot of learning that's gone now in the primary care environment and focusing on. But the two can mix, and the two can be understood. And I think having the information to create that understanding is real important. Okay, this is your data, and that's what you're talking about, Rhonda. This is the advanced orthopedics team. And we've kind of gone over it, I guess, a little bit. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to it, or?
Just other than, we've seen an increase in our patient value added time as well through the process improvements that we've done. And I think it's just really cool when I'm out rounding with patients and seeing how their experience was, the comments that we get from those patients about how we were very prompt and we were efficient. They didn't wait long, and they feel that this is a very, one specific patient said that this is a very futuristic system. And so they would like to see this implemented through additional places in our clinic or in all True Health System. So I think it's been received very well by our population.
Okay. Are you guys looking at patient value added time a little bit more now than you are cycle time?
Yep, absolutely. We're looking at both of them, but primarily right now we are focusing on the patient value added time. That is a goal for our department to make sure that that patient is continuing to move through their appointment, but they're getting that value by having someone from our care team in front of them. for a majority of it. So right now, as of today, we were at 59% patient value added time.
Really?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So we're very excited about
Almost
that.
60. That's great.
Yeah.
We should tell the audience what patient value added time is. We should make that definition. We've been talking about it like everyone's going to understand this, but anybody want to take a crack at that for everybody out there?
I'll take it. So basically, patient value added time is any time that the patient is in the clinic with a staff member doing something. And whether they are with the nurse and doing the rooming, with the provider and doing the evaluation and treatment, whether they're with the x-ray tech and getting imaging or getting their scheduled appointment, all of that has value. Anything in between, all the times that the patient is waiting or just walking around the clinic aimlessly, all of that has no value to overall patient care. Patient would prefer not to have that. They would not pay for that. So all of that would be the non-value added time. So when you look at patient experience altogether, you are hopeful and expectant that the patient value added time would be high and non-value added time should be low.
Absolutely. And the technology helps with that or helps facilitate that, because when a patient's wearing a badge, a staff member's wearing a badge, those badges are being received by the transmitters on the ceiling. Those associations are being made, and that's the data that flows through. And what you were talking about earlier, Jess, is putting all that together with making sure it flows through the Cisco system, it gets into the relational database, and all of that comes into the BI tool and brings all this complication together in what I think are simple but important measures that have a lot of depth and breadth to them, which is kind of neat. Dr. McCarrum, your practice is coming up next. This is your information.
I'm obviously winning healthcare, as you can see. No, by no means. So definitely one of the things to point out is this is always going to be a work in progress. We're learning how to use this. So there's always room for improvement. My numbers are definitely not where I wish they were, but the fact that I can see them and I can discuss them with my team is kind of the most important thing. And again, in primary care, especially in a clinic like Crookston that has its own everything, you're going to have a lot of variation intermittently, because if somebody comes in and has abdominal pain, you potentially may see that person and then you order labs and you get an x-ray. You have to wait for the lab results. It sucks for the numbers, but it is reality. And if you don't like what you see and you need a CT, then you get your CT and then you wait for the CT results, which also is a lot of non-value added time. So I do have a little peek of both sides on the right side of the screen. There was a decrease in my patient value added time. I actually went in there because that stands out to me. I went in there and I looked at which were the patients that created that dip. And I was able to go in and I saw that one of them was actually a person who came in with severe anemia. So we had to get a CVC first that lasted for a little while and the patient was waiting. We found the anemia. Then he was also hypotensive. So we put him in the infusion. So he was in the infusion for like 2 hours, which also was, technically waiting. There's nobody on staff that's right next to the patient during that time. So on the data, it comes across as non-value added. And then after that, there was some orders that we needed to do for the transfusion. So, it just takes a little bit to create a skew. But with this type of program, you can actually go in and understand the why. Because if this was more of a trend of, let's say for 2 weeks, I kind of did not great, and then potentially maybe my nurse was not there for those 2 weeks and I worked with someone else. And so you can really evaluate and understand the reasons behind the data as opposed to just being told to go faster. Mm-hmm. It's a process. Mm-hmm. And we're definitely in the middle of it. By no means am I using this in an optimal fashion just yet, because there's a learning curve, and there's also, you do this a little bit on your own time. Mm-hmm. Your schedule is booked up, mm-hmm. and you still got to see your patients, you still got to do your meetings, yep. And then you kind of have to find the time to understand this, because ultimately it's an investment, and doing better later.
There's a correlation that when we looked at your information, it was kind of interesting. Okay, patient wait time goes up, patient value time goes down. And then as we look at the entire organization, we see some of that correlation again. And if you look at the two panels on the right, we see patient value added time, dipping down, patient wait time trending up. Cycle time has gone down because worked hard for scheduling and to get patients into the organization, and that's great process improvement. But here's a patient value conversation that can happen, and I think it's fantastic when the care teams can get this info and they can start saying, okay, what can we do? When does this happen? Just like you, and when you say you're winning at healthcare, I agree with you. I know you meant it in a jovial way, but I agree. You are, because you're looking at how can we best make use of my time as a provider. The patient makes the best use of their time, trusting and visiting all of you with their care. And I think within this information, there's a lot to learn. We get questions about, okay, Paul, or I, Bailey, what are numbers? What's a good patient value added time number? What's a standard? What should we hit with? And honestly, folks, we don't have it. Okay. But the fact that you've picked something, Rhonda, you've picked a number that for patient value added time that you want to hit. Mm-hmm. You looked at your numbers and said, I'm not quite there yet, but I know I want to get to this, whatever that is. Okay. And so what we're finding out is that there are some really kind of cool instances of numbers that can be hit. And here's urology of cycle time down into the 20s. I know it's urology, it's a specialty clinic, it's a different deal. Their patient value added time is hitting up there in the mid 80s, and their patient total wait time is still, around that 4-minute range. So it seems to be like the patient waiting time, the 4 minutes, what we're saying is that's 4 minutes between different phases of care. There's still opportunity there. And so that's kind of cool, to see and be able to pick up best practice. Some providers say, well, there's no way I can't. If I'm at 48% patient value at a time, how in the world am I ever going to get up to 60? Or here, that's where you are. You're in the 60, 63 range. Or the doctors that work for you are, up in that range. So it's here within your organization is best practice. Here within your organization are things that you can learn, from each other. And I think that's pretty neat. Okay, a couple of things. This is interesting. This is a hype cycle. Comes from the Gartner Group. This is the two red circles there. This is in 2009, and they were saying that RFID was in what they call the trough of disillusionment. And on the left side of the curve, you can see things like computer touch screens, voice activated, software, cloud computing, which have all kind of happened. And right now, in 2018, we see that RTLS is in the far right, which is the plateau of productivity. And right now in that trough of disillusionment is patient throughput, capacity, and understanding, which is what all of you are working with right now. And I wanted to present this to the audience and to all of you to say that this is tough work. It really is. And being in that trough of disillusionment takes leadership. And what's that leadership look like to you when you're in that space of the care team saying, what's this badge that I should wear, and what's these numbers that I should be looking at? What's that like? Is it difficult? Is it hard sometimes to keep going? I mean, is it getting to the other side, getting them to understand? Do you ever run out of energy? What's that like?
That's, I would say, a little bit of a difficult question. I got a lot of hype from orthopedic providers. By the time that we wanted to try this out, Dr. Gardner and I spoke about it, and he was all on top of this. And I got really excited about it. And I think my expectations were very clear from the beginning that this was not going to work on week 2. That this was going to be a gigantic learning curve and understanding curve, and it needed a lot of patience. more than anything. So I think having a strong, we'll say, leadership team. My dad is very much invested in this as well, and we kind of hype each other up, and that's the biggest part. To just keep watching and to keep documenting the cases that are showing on the RTLS that make no sense, so that we can go back and understand why it didn't happen, so that we can change the algorithm and make sure it doesn't happen again. It takes a lot of time and effort and interest to do that. But when you start seeing results, it becomes a lot easier. And my team in general, they are on board with it for the communication. You kind of have to prove to providers that there is a benefit before they are on board with it. But I have a very, very willing team. And we didn't really meet a lot of resistance with at least attempting, as long as they understood that, let's try and let's improve upon it, as opposed to, trust me, this is going to work.
Sure.
I would say that it's a continuous conversation. It's not always an easy conversation, especially when numbers are going in the wrong direction. That's not the easiest conversation to have, but my team also is very open to the RTLS, and as we're bringing on new providers, we're getting them excited about it. It's just constant. It's not an overnight thing. It's continuous improvement. It's continuous conversation. So if you think that you can implement RTLS and all your problems are solved, that's not how it works. Sure.
One thing that impressed me about all of you, the screen that's up now, is the touchdown space, that you do in the communication. And they always say leadership, communication, these are all, important pieces of organizational development. And this is just an example of how you all communicate. You're transparent. The information goes up on the board. We worked real hard to make this not complicated. Here's our data. These are the projects, that need to be done. And I think that's working out well. And I'm very happy to see that moving forward. So now we got into the last phase here, and what's on the horizon? And Dr. McCarron, what do you see?
Right now, more than anything, is the engagement from providers to using this data. I mean, the big thing about all this RTLS, it's that they're tools. You can either use them or not use them. And if you don't use them correctly, then you're headed the wrong direction. So you have to change the culture. What worked 10 years ago is not going to work in 10 years. So using these tools to drive change really comes from the team and the culture. It doesn't come from the manager telling people what to do. And this is where our next step really is to engage the providers, to really look at this, understand it, and drive change from it.
Fantastic. I think we'll wrap things up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, All-True team, for your time. Thank you, everyone who's listened. Thank you, Sam, for everything that you've done. Thank you to Sonitor for helping to sponsor this. We have a few questions that have come up. One of the questions is for you, Dr. McCarron. I was thinking about orthopedics. Dr. McCarron, if you were to do this over again, is there like one or two things that sort of stand out that you would do differently?
No. I think we have taken the right road. Jill Wilson was a big part of getting this going for us, and she was very instructive and very smart at telling me what to expect and talk to those who have been through it so that you can learn from them. Talking to Dr. Gardner and having your help throughout the whole thing and making sure that we have open communication. What we have learned we would not have been taught any of it. So we needed to go through what we went through to be able to be where we are. I think we were as well prepared as we can be. And this is just the time it takes to make significant change.
Okay. Jess, this question is for you. On the technology side, did you feel like your systems were in place and ready to go, or was the learning curve pretty significant?
I feel that we did have a learning curve. There were pieces of the puzzle that needed to be tweaked throughout. Capacity wise on the servers, we had to add more space. We had some network trouble. We have different campuses at Altru. So the orthopedics clinic is on our south campus and cardiology is on our main campus, et cetera. And the way that our networks are configured have different implications for different locations. So in the midst of working and just running day to day, we've had some outages on the south campus, and it kept happening about once a month. And so we are drawing conclusions and troubleshooting, trying to figure out how can we stop this from happening. And we discovered that there was a problem with our version of Cisco. So we upgraded that. And we've just gone through a lot of those, finding a problem, troubleshooting, figuring it out, fixing it, along the way. And so definitely need someone who can understand all of that and who knows all the pieces of the puzzle and how they come together